You don't really understand sometimes what a terrible burden it is to know some of the things that I know and try to wake people up and impart this knowledge to them and find out that they just have walls built in front of them. They want to be slaves. That's why my broadcast scares the hell out of socialists. You see, what happens when you broadcast the truth is you piss everybody off.
I maintain that the only true salvation from any oppression or enslavement is self-empowerment, knowledge, consciousness. Don't get caught up in the 87% of people who follow the leader. People who think that they are rebels because they denounce authority simply because it's the latest fashion. Don't march the streets claiming that you are the enlightened one because you read a book or saw a film that gave you a glimpse into an uncommon knowledge. And don't proclaim yourself an original thinker because you belong to a group that represents an unpopular belief. Those are all examples of the other side of the coin of groupthink, leading a false rebellion. False rebellion is dangerous because it gives the illusion that you are free and thinking for yourself. A true revolution begins when you quit following and start leading. And those who end up following you should be taught by you to quit following you and start leading. And the only way to lead successfully is by fully understanding your rights as a human being on this planet. We have very powerful tools on our side called the Bill of Rights and the Constitution.
And I like the way we want to use the heuristic approach to learn this. And this legal side to me is something I want to learn about. And that's why I was talking to Cloudwalker, and he said, well, hey, Tim, you know what? Let's talk to somebody I know that has been there, has gone through it, and has fought the judges. He's the only guy I know who's ever done that. All these other guys can just put stuff out there, but they've never done it. You know what I'm saying? They've never really...
And I'll tell you the difference in me and others, and especially the team that was around me, all of us working together. I didn't assemble this team. I was part of it. The difference in me and everyone else is I came to a premise right up front that I was not going to try to change the system, because universally the system was in place for a reason. It had to be in place for a reason. And in all these movies, you just go back to what we were talking about, the system is actually telling people how to live. The problem is choice. That's what Neo told the architect. The problem is choice. Spider-Man 3, the problem is choice. Ghost Rider, you can't live in fear. You have to make the right choice. Over and over. The movie The Happening. The movie The Box that just came out, which most people don't like, and it's an incredible movie because they actually cut out all the entertainment and special effects and put a movie out that was nothing but pure, raw choice.
The Box? Oh, I gotta check that out.
It's in people's face constantly. Avatar, the same thing. It was so funny. Everybody, just like this guy with his website, we were just looking at, he ain't got any rights. He has no constitutional rights because he's a United States citizen. If he's not a United States citizen, he's an American. And the word American means of or pertaining to the United States. So he's still a United States citizen. That just boggles my mind that people can't figure that out. American, of or pertaining to the United States. The word of means to belong to. So you're still a U.S. citizen, although you run around and call yourself an American. But you just identified yourself. That was a choice that they didn't tell you to make. You made it. So now you're in collusion with all of that. And unfortunately for them, it says in case law that America, by contract, gave up all rights, title, and interest, which means if you're an American, you have no rights, no title, and no interest. None. Zero. Then you're not signatory to any of the agreements that give you any rights. And when you assume those rights, the reason they tell you if you bring it up again in this courtroom, I'm going to throw you in prison for contempt and leave you there until you figure it out, is because you just trespassed across someone else's rights. You didn't write that document. That's their intellectual property, and you just trespassed on their rights. You're not signatory to it. You're not part of the compact. And they've told people repeatedly, those who are not signatory to the compact don't have the right to bring up a constitutional argument in this court. When I was doing what we did, It really was to test the system. Well, in the beginning it wasn't. I was angry when I found this out.
Yeah.
When I originally found this out, I was mad. But I got over it fairly quickly, just because my wife and I had moved to St. Kitts, and my whole premise was I wanted out of this system. I thought that making a geographical move was going to get me out, and I was wrong. Making a geographical move doesn't get anyone out. They just go pick them up when they want them. Or if the U.S. decides to recall all of its citizens that belong to the United States, they have treaties with these other governments, and those other governments have no obligation to protect U.S. citizens whatsoever. So all the people who are leaving, just like I did back in 1999, it really was for the reason of hiding. Now, I do believe that a prudent man sees danger and takes refuge. And in this case, it would be build a refuge. Hiding doesn't work. They can sniff you out. They can spot a dime on the ground anymore with these satellites, so hiding ain't going to work.
Yeah, it's true. You know, and then we had the discussion, too, if you become an expat, you know, expatriate, where you completely sever your ties with the United States and move to another country, which some people are doing. And they talk about what they've done it for, and their reasons was just to get out of the system. Kind of like not running away, but getting out of the system completely. But they have to have visas and different kind of documentation just to get back and see their family in the United States.
Don't get past the fact that it's still individual choice. Universally, you're here to make a choice. And if others in your family are not willing to make that choice, that's not on you. Still have to make the right choice. Now, going back to what you just said about going to other jurisdictions and expatriating to other jurisdictions, if you become a citizen of another jurisdiction, you're subject to their rules and their laws. If you're a U.S. citizen and found in their jurisdiction, any citizen that's in any other jurisdiction only has the same rights of that other jurisdiction. And you have less rights, I know. I lived in St. Kitts. They don't treat you the same. Now, I had more liberty down in St. Kitts. Liberty meaning we got 4 pieces of mail per month. I didn't have somebody calling, snooping. We had quite a bit of liberty. But we still didn't have freedom, because freedom requires responsibility, not running away. So circumstances or the universe or whatever aligned the circumstances in our lives in such a way that I had to come back here. And I did not have to take on the system and challenge the system unless I wanted to learn. And it wasn't about changing the system. It was about changing my relationship to it. And 4 years ago, when I had done enough work and I got in a position where I was offered and accepted an ambassadorial appointment with another jurisdiction, and after that time ended up in a court and submitted documentation, and they wrote me back as ambassador, that's when I knew that I had done something different and had a new agreement. Because those agreements are there. They're called treaties. But it still comes back to contract law. It comes back to the agreement. And the United States honored the agreement.